Good golly, Miss Molly, if this ain't a refreshing reboot, then I don't know what is. Yeah, that reboot was short, but was made of the best ingredients to create such awesome sauce. But I will tell you what else is a promising series. Certainly not these clothes-hanger abortions. I'm talking about DuckTales. Not ponytails or cottontails. No, DuckTales. Originally a popular cartoon series from the 80s to early 90s, the troublesome triplets and their materialistic Uncle Scrooge return after 30 years to create new, DuckTales, as they go on daring adventures for treasure and excitement. And might I safely say, knock on wood, that I bless the rains down in Africa because this reboot was just as okay as I expected. I know I built it up in the beginning as if I thought DuckTales 2017 was a television masterpiece of this generation, and even had the audacity to compare it to Season 5 of Samurai Jack. But the reason why I sounded so enthusiastic about something I just said was okay was because it is 100% better than the reboots we've gotten over the last couple of years. On my Twitter, I was so excited about DuckTales making a comeback. Or should I say, come quack? I will not apologize for that as much as I want to. I shall refrain. I happily awaited for each announcement about the series, and may or may not have cried when I heard the rebooted theme song. Anyways, when I wasn't overflowing with nostalgic juice, I had this feeling in the back of my mind that I didn't want to be true. It's the fact that sometimes things that are rebooted are worse. I didn't want them to modernize the show so much that I would hear a reference relating to memes or the boys pester Donald with a fidget spinner while saying, "It's just a prank, Uncle Donald," and ride off down the hall on hoverboards or some shit. I would probably slip into a coma at the first duck face selfie joke, even though it does involve a pun that may or may not get a small and ashamed chuckle out of me. And then I'd slip into a 30-year coma until Darkwing Duck gets its reboot. I have been so traumatized by the 2016 Powerpuff Girls that deep down I had fears for the beloved DuckTales series. I didn't want them to drastically change anything just to appeal to the youth and only the youth. I didn't want them to turn Launchpad into Patrick Star. I didn't want the internet to sexualize/romanticize the triplets and Webby. But that's probably unavoidable for anything anymore, so I'll just accept it and ignore it. But since I have such a big heart for old Disney classics, I of course stayed hyped and awaited the premiere of the first episode, appropriately titled Woo! I can't even sing that, but it makes you think I could say it. The show starts off similar yet different to the original counterpart, Huey, Dewey, and Louie living with their Uncle Donald Duck because they suffer from Disney parent syndrome. No mothers, or sometimes on rare occasion, no fathers allowed. And if you're really lucky, you don't get neither. Donald is tired of his mischievous nephews ruffling his feathers, and leaves them with their great Uncle Scrooge while he leaves for a job interview, unlike in the original where Donald was joining the Navy. Odd change, huh, fellas? It goes off from there. The kids get into Scrooge's garage and mess about with his past findings that are also nice callbacks to the older episodes, and end up going on an adventure to Atlantis. You know, the normal 0 to 100 stuff that all families go through. What I really like about this revival is the way they gave the triplets their own different outfits, voices, and personalities. In the 80s version, the boys were incredibly hard to tell apart. Only way to tell who is who was by their colors. That's it. If you close your eyes while watching, you wouldn't be able to point out which one was talking. But now we have Huey, the know-it-all and certainly the most mature, Louie, the laid-back one, and Dewey, the rebellious one in blue with lots of tude. It's nice to finally have character in these, characters. Webby I kind of like a lot better than the old Webby because she's definitely not as annoying. She's tolerable, but I feel like they were trying to give her a Mabel Pines-like personality. They even gave her a voice actress who sounds a tad similar to Christian Skull, or however you pronounce her last name. But once again, not obnoxious like 1987 Webby Vonderduck, so I'll give her a pass. Sadly, I do feel like they did dumb down Launchpad. He's not on Pinky levels of dumb, but he is more of an airhead than his original counterpart was. Still crashes the plane though. That's nice that they kept that gag going. Mrs. Beakley is ripped and is queen. Instead of being the nagging and cautious maid service, she's a granny who is not afraid to duck some shit up and stands up for herself. Also, her redesign is perfection. I will never say perfection like that again. Scrooge is played by the 10th Doctor. That's all I'm gonna say about that, cause it's ducking David Tennant playing Scrooge McDuck. What else do you need to make a character more awesome? Okay, Scrooge does have more depth to him. He shows more affection towards his great-nephews, has a secret past that causes him to be more distant from his family, and is played by David Tennant. The end. Moving on to Donald, he's still the duck that you can hardly understand and has a huge temper, but I really love how he treats his nephews this time. Donald Duck was a complete and ducking asshole to the boys in the much older cartoons. He traumatized them, hit them, yelled at them, etc. In the 80s DuckTales, he's a parental figure, but still has his moments where he does lose his temper on the triplets. In the 2017 reboot, he still kinda gets mad at the boys, but that's because they drive him crazy. But Donald is more overprotective and even shows people pictures of the boys like a proud uncle. It's so cute, I almost had feelings. Stepping aside from the characters, I should say how I feel about the episode itself. It was fun to watch, very nostalgic, but it felt super rushed. I watched it 3 times during the all-day marathon it had and couldn't get over the fact that the plot was kinda rushed and they didn't ease into the series. They got straight to the adventure and the strong bond between the great uncle and nephews, which I expected to be developed through the series and not just in one whole episode. It didn't feel like the first episode. It felt like I was just dropped in the middle of the series, which if you were a fan of the old DuckTales, I guess that's fine, and I was, but I wanted something new and I wanted to start over. However, I am pretty intrigued by the ending of the episode. Spoilers! Dewey finds a painting of Scrooge and Donald on one of their adventures back in the day, but he finds another person in the picture, a female duck that Dewey instantly assumes is his mom. This can lead into an interesting plotline through the series. Sure, it's been milked to death in other shows, but if I recall, we never did find out about the boys' parents. We never knew why they were left in custody of their uncle. We just assumed they pawned them off because of financial issues, or perhaps Walt himself pulled the trigger on both parents for giving life. So that right there is a cliffhanger for either a misleading or promising future. It wasn't a bad episode, no, far from it, but it all happened so fast that I can see why they played it for 24 hours on loop. Overall, it has its flaws. Nothing can be released and seen as decent without carrying mistakes. But I will continue to watch it because holy Swiss cheese, is it good, and I love DuckTales. Compared to the trash I've seen, this is a promising revival that I look forward to. Flaws and all, I am super excited for this series to take off. I just hope the internet doesn't spoil it for me. Please let me have something nice. And yeah, technically this is a Thoughts On, and I released a Thoughts On a few days ago. Maybe I'll just call it a review and get away with it. Alright, this has been another Space Robot review. Thank you guys for watching, and goodbye. Holy duck, this review is a lot longer than my thoughts on the 13th Doctor. That right there tells you which subject I care more about. That or I need to learn how to file taxes instead of watching cartoons.